Hey. We are on.
Okay. Welcome.
Hello. I don't know if this comes over the loudspeaker, but hopefully you see, folks, we are not alone. There's a large group of people. I see 9 participants in other places in the world. And I just have to say a couple of words about technology. When the Global Eco-Village Network started, internet was like new to everybody. And at that conference at Finland, the very first sessions was, what is internet? I didn't dream of doing this then. And I'm a slow learner. And so I never really got used to this technology. But we have an in-house group, and then we have another 9 participants who are zooming in on us, and they will join us when we have a discussion. So I don't need to use that. Do I need to speak into this? I need to speak into this. I always wanted to be a rock star, so now I can, I feel good now.
So you start singing now?
Well, don't ask me, it's not good.
Okay.
I would like to ask everybody please to switch off your mobile phones unless you have a call sign with songs. I grew up in the 60s, and so if you have that kind of call sign, please get people to call you a lot. We have 2 speakers that I'm about to introduce. The format of the session will be that each speaker will have about half an hour to present, and then that should give us around half an hour to have an open discussion. Actually, the truth is, see, as one chair, I get to make all the decisions. It's great, So that's the format of this session. I'm very strict about timing, and I'm told that we have to be finished at 12:30, and we will finish at, trust me. And our job really is to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. And so I would ask, are there any questions about the actual format of this? Great, I love silence. Just to introduce, we have a technical backup team here. Amsale is the Zoom chair, is that correct? Okay. Zoom tech, right. And Amy, you are the Zoom chair. So their job is to keep the people out there, the other 9 participants, to keep them happy and engaged. And Amadou is, I think, Room Tech. And we worked together for a long time, since yesterday. And I trust that this is going to be a great session technically, except that I just lost my internet connection. But I don't need it right now, so I'm not going to start the session. I'd like to introduce Gerriet Schwen. Our friendship goes a long way back. I met him 5 minutes before the session outside here. So it's very hard for me to introduce Gerriet, but he's got a great smile, and that's always a good start when you meet somebody. And he knows more himself than I do, so I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm giving you until 11:30 to present your thing. And I will give you a signal. This means 5 minutes left. This minute means 2 minutes left. And after 2 minutes, we shut you down. Okay?
Thanks, Jan. All right.
I'm gonna start with the workflow. I would be glad if you could do the first slide, which holds which is moment, I will about this session. My presentation.
Because I can hear the, well, just a little bit more. I don't hear the mic, I just hear you now.
Yes. All right. Welcome, everyone. I want to talk to you about understanding attitudes conducive to intentional communities through participatory action research. My name is Gerriet. I will show you myself. If you could give me the second slide. Yes. This is one way of how I introduce myself. I'm working as a social scientist at several projects. One is that I'm a research fellow, a lecturer at University with the focus on living labs. I'm also the project coordinator of two projects. One is focused on the challenges of intentional communities and community-led projects funded by the Federal Ministry of Research and Education in Germany. So I'm glad that there's also further shift that what we are doing get more and more acknowledged by also the more traditional institutes and funding opportunities. And if you could skip the next slide and go to the fourth slide, I could also introduce myself like this. So I'm feeling like walking through or kind of like being, I see myself as an edge worker, living community myself, working with knowledge production and an academic background on the other side, and always trying to figure out or find the sweet spot between scientific work and community work. And this is also what I'm talking about, using action research and using art-based expressions, dialogue, creative writing, and all then participatory methods to gain deeper understanding of what really makes community working. So if you could go to the next slide, I will start with a little story. So I already said that I'm interested in real life research and that I wonder how research projects can contribute to community relevant insights and how these processes can be designed that they are not merely scientific job that create some people, but some real impact. So I will forward to these spots. Camilla, please be welcome. I'm looking forward to find sweet spots, but there was already a method that I used. And I have the impression that community research, and please don't be offended anyway, but I have the impression that community research is primarily concerned about the frameworks, about the social structures, about the legal issues, about like decision-making processes. And all of those, they are super important. There are kind of bases for the success of community projects, but there are only prerequisites. So if you have a legal structure, if you have a good decision-making method, if you have all these like social structures, that does not make a good community. Therefore, I focused on what I'm calling inner attitudes. So I wonder, like, what is the way how people relate to each other in communities, and how can we design research projects that really tap into this dimension of the quality of how we relate to each other. So I tried two things with the last project that I want to present you at now. And it's first identifying common attitudes that are supportive to community, and second, exploring co-creative research methods that center the real needs of communities. And with this two ideas, I designed a bicycle trip with two dear friends of mine, Anna Geldbach and Robin Dux. And we invited a fellow group of 10 people on the trip, 2 weeks, 10 communities, to follow each one with a personal question. And we structured this process for a first week of art-based method and a second week of speech-based method, dialogue and creative writing, and finalize this kind of action research with creating these principles from our multi-perspective experience. So, next slide, please. I'm always trying to bridge it, like different knowledge bodies, and so the first thing we have done is forming a group, and there are many reasons to do so. Oh, sorry, I haven't translated that quote. So there's a well-known German poet and researcher and so on, Goethe, who said there's a delicate or maybe tender or maybe even a gentle empirism that makes itself intimately identical with the object and thereby becomes the proper theory. So we try to find this inner space of relating to research question that bridges the separation between subject and object. And also, I just put another resource there. There's the whole discussion of participatory action research or community-based participatory action research, which for whatever reason is not really connected to community or to intentional community research, but holds great potential because it really outlines the necessity to start a research project by creating a common goal, by bridging practitioners and researchers, and establish a relationship that follows questions on an eye level, shared goal. So if you could go on to the next slide, we centered our action research trip around questions. I just want to outline that there's a great pamphlet by a German, let's say, philosopher, Janssen, and she wrote 15 theses on aesthetic research. I just want to dip in some of them. She says, for example, that the core of aesthetic research is the interconnection of pre-scientific procedures oriented to everyday experience and artistic strategies and scientific methods. So I'm not the first one. There are many people that try to relate these different approaches of aesthetic research, of everyday research, of embodied knowledge, of tacit knowledge, and try to bring them into the body of scientific knowledge and systemically structure them. Everything can be an object of research. And then I put down another source, The Art of Powerful Questions, because probably some of you know that generative questions are the best starting point for whatever you're looking forward to do. So all of us that took part in this bicycle action research trip did it with their own generative question. And I have the impression that the fruitfulness of the learning process depends on good questions. So I strongly recommend you this source, which greatly outlines the importance of open questions. Next slide, please. So what we have done is that we visited around about one community per day, and that we afterwards engage in the multidimensional reflection process. So we tried to not get like distracted by facts and presentations or walkarounds or whatever. We completely focused on the atmosphere of like the quality of conversations, of like how is it to be cutting with you and sitting at the bonfire, and what are like really the social tipping points. And we had a first week that was totally focused on art-based experiences. So every day we did one of these liparellos that you can see over there, which are like 8 pages, and we had 2 minutes per page to have just an intuitive expression. And then we developed like from one page to the next, something like non-linguistic story of our experience of this community. And we shared them afterwards to create this like highly complex picture of what we learned with our questions, all of them relating to the main question: what inner attitudes make communities successful. And then we had a second week with the same group that was focused on like finding words for these like subtle experiences. And we worked a lot with creative writing and also with dialogue, where I just put you this one source of Martin Buber. To really dive into a co-creative field or like common intelligence to support each other to become or to create the capacity to express what's really important to communicate about inner attitudes in community. Next slide. So what we have done after 2 weeks is putting everything on the table. And we had a storytelling that resulted in 86 themes. All of them being some qualities or attitudes or also values related to the core question: what inner attitudes makes community or make a community successful? And what we have done is that we perform what is known in social science as open coding in a dialogical group setting. So usually scientists alone sit at their desk and kind of like operating the power of deciding what's important for practitioners and what not. And they're in charge creating like categories and coming up with like 6 principles and saying, all right, I've talked to 100 of eco-villagers or communitarians, and now I know what's important for them. And these are my 6 principles. And I tried to make community not only the subject of study, but also the method itself. So we not only collected all these 87 themes together, we also co-creatively like contextualized them and categorize them. And yeah, there's just like the normal mainstream research for open coding, and then below you see from Michael Quinn-Patton his work on principles, because what we were looking for was to transform these important themes into principles, because principles are something that you can operate from. Principles are something that give you guidance if you want to create your capacity to foster community. And within the last minutes, I want to share with you the 6 principles that we came up with. So the next 2 slides. The first is be courageous. Show yourself and be seen. The second one is follow your curiosity and get involved with the unknown. The third is accept what you can change. Not everything is in your hands. The fourth is take time for reflection and appreciation. The fifth is learn to hold contradictions and to deal with paradoxes creatively. And last but not least, stick to it. Never stop starting. All right, I pulled together some bibliography, but we can go to the last slide. I want to warmly thank you for being open to stay with me with this experiment, which I know that is kind of like outside of the comfort zone for people that are used to be in the community bubble, because we tried to like nail it down. We tried to like put it in words. We decided to make 6 principles out of it, and not 8, and not 9, and not 5. So there is some there's some loss of comfort if you decide to engage with the idea of systemizing knowledge. And from the other side, I'm glad that people that come from the scientific background not run out of the door, because what I'm doing is also like kind of not normal within the academic community. There are some connections, what I told you about like participatory action research and community-based science, but in the end, like really going for power sharing, and for example, like making the group itself responsible for structuring the knowledge is something that we are not used to in our academic culture. And that also makes it kind of hard to do what I'm doing at university and to get it in peer-reviewed papers. So yeah, last but not least, I want to share with you that I'm really looking forward to dive deeper into these like co-creative methods of knowledge production. That I'm really interested in the quality of these processes that allows us to give space for emergence, for what we sometimes may refer to as wisdom, or as like not only analytic levels of knowing. And thus I'm also interested in the whole topic of inner attitudes, because to me it seems like these are really like it's the source level from where we start to create our reality over and over on a daily basis. And yeah, then there are also some ideas that have been or that came up after this this research, which had been delivered in 2021. And afterwards, I get to know into the pattern language discourse. So right now, for me, it feels maybe more practical to go with principles, because they are like highly like doable. They're always like that. I mean, it's their potential, but also their downside. Stick to it. Never stop starting. I mean, that could be also on these yogi tea thingy litters or whatever. It's I don't know. I would call it rather an American way of dealing with knowledge, which holds great potential regarding the possibility of reducing complexity and really like nail it down to a simple idea. But these like this way of approaching complex knowledge is also a great loss of information, and it comes like ontological from a mindset that is referring to ideals, to principles. And the pattern language does not care at all about principles or ideals. Pattern language is just looking what has been working, and so it's totally focused on complexity within our daily interactions within our communities. And with this in mind, I'm interested to carry on this work with the focus on pattern language and inner attitudes. So I'm really glad to hear your questions, your comments, your remarks. But we already heard that this will be after the second presentation, and I'm really looking forward to how we can mingle all of this together. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yes, is there, do we have a room window monitor?
That would be really good. Yes, air is always good. Okay. Thank you, Gerriet. That resonated many things with me, which I want to also take up afterwards. Camilla,
Yes,
we met last night
yeah,
and found out last night and this morning at breakfast that we have many connections.
oh, yes.
And I don't think I need to introduce you because you all know her already from this morning. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank you for the input that you gave. And the same deal with you.
Yes,
You have till 12 o'clock.
yeah,
And I give you 2 signals to get you towards the end.
definitely.
Right?
Okay. Good,
All yours.
yes, thank you. I have been invited to share a little bit about what's going on in Denmark. So I did a bit this morning, and I'll go deeper now in the research projects that are right now in many ways reflecting the current trends, we can say. It's nice to see so many known faces also from the Gen Gathering. Some of you were also in my presentation there, so it will be a bit repetitive for some of you. Also have Helen, who is actually part of our advisory board in one of the projects. And yeah, and also, I mean, to reflect on the participatory action research that you're doing. I mean, I'm a research practitioner, which means that I do live in community, I work with community and so on, but 2 days a week, I am in these research projects and so on. Yeah. So that's also my background here. Is my presentation? It's coming. Okay. Well, we have been involved, I'm involved in 4 different research projects, and I'll just give you a glimpse of them. I'll go a little bit deeper in 2 of them, and the 2 others I'll just present shortly. Just to give you an overview, like a fly-in to some of the Danish projects that are currently alive. So, as it says here, we have one about developer-driven communities, as I said a bit this morning, and we have one about Danish community mapping. Those 2 are actually from Aalborg University, and they are focused a lot on the more like hard data in some ways. And then the other 2 are with the Institute of Anthropology and the Social Science of Copenhagen universities that go more deeper in some other aspects. So those are the ones that I'll quickly introduce to you. Yes. I will start by just showing you a photo of my own village, where some of you will come on Monday. And this was, as I said, a very bottom-up, self-grown community project, living 2.5 years in little sheds before we could build, and so on and so forth. Cultural design and all these kind of things. But then if we go to the next slide, you see that just 5 kilometers away from us, the emergence of a commercial top-down eco-village is being built. 5 kilometers away from us. From the company ecovillage.dk, they are now building up a place here with 52 eco houses, 4 times organic vegetarian food a week, but with very limited influence from the people who are going to move in there. They will basically get to know each other the day they get their keys, kind of. And then we hope that they will form a good community based on something. But at least this setup is that they somehow provide the framework, the houses. They already arranged the 4 days a week the first year. It's actually already organized who should provide the food, the ingredients. They'll come in boxes. And yeah, everything is set. You don't need to have many long meetings in your community to find out these things. It's already predefined. Some people are very attracted to these kind of communities, where you don't have to sit in long meetings and so on. You can just blend in, and if you like what you see, 4 times a week, it's not even up for discussion. Well, it's a model that attracts people. Yes, we can go to the next one, which is another of the eco-villages that you will visit on Monday, those going there. It's Mosegård, which is, for me, one of our most well-designed eco-villages in Denmark. It has also become very popular in its 20 years of existence. So if you go to the next slide, very fast, I know I don't have much time, you will see that Mosegård is the A, the first one. When it was built, all this was just a field. But nowadays, there are actually 10 communities just around. And that's what Ross said, that in Roskilde, the municipality, they've done a lot to actually promote community living. Out of these 10, some of them are made from developers, others are more bottom up. One of them is like communal co-housing, public housing projects. They're all different. They're characterized by being like between 17 and 35 houses. Another characteristic is that they're very expensive. It's really for the rich people. So communal living in this area is very expensive. I can say that Mosegård, for instance, I think the recent house they sold, in the owners, they have both owners, cooperatives, and public housing. It was sold for 7.4 million Danish kroner. That's quite high, I would say. Okay, we can go to the next. Because what's happening now here is that, yes, we have the pioneers 20 years ago with Mosegård, then we have the followers that came in who tried to do it a little bit faster, but still in a bottom-up thing. And then today we have a mature market kind of situation in Denmark. And Yes, so today community life in Denmark is an attractive, competitive, and quite costly market. Yes, we can continue. This is how we normally portray the market or the diversity in Denmark when it comes to community living. Self-grown communities like the one in Herning-Lille, where I come from, group of people who together form it. On the other side, we have the developer-driven, as I said, like the Ecovillage.dk. They have the community, they build the houses, and then they find the people. In the middle, we have the more concept-driven communities, and those are the ones like the one that Ross has established, where I work as an employee, as a community builder. And that is, woohoo, where we have a concept that is predefined, but we find people who are attracted by this concept, who influence it, and together we shape the community. But we make it possible in a faster way, professional way, where yes, they don't have to sit in meetings for 3 to 5 years, as many of the self-grown communities. Many like families today, single mothers, they don't have that capacity, that time. So it is a way to get more people to have access to community life. Yeah, take the next one. So what has become in Denmark is like a copy-paste model of building communities. That we have many different, not even organizations, but yes, companies who build up their own concept, which is ready for replication. Which means that we have several of these companies today who will start not only one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, spread out over Denmark out of the same concept. Yeah. So that they build up a concept that they find is strong, and then they replicate it and establish it several places. Okay, we can go to the next. Yeah, this is just one of our little models where we say, okay, we have these different positions also, where some are, yeah, as I said, characterized by a predefined concept, others is more collaborative development process. We have the complete building where you do everything for the people who move in, or like self-built communities. And we just have 5 here, 5 of the actors. Bærbo is the one I work with. We deal with complete buildings, but have a very collaborative process. Where on the other side, we have Ecovillage.dk and others who have the predefined concept, already made buildings, no influence, and you can just move in. Yeah, then continue. Yeah, this is just one of the examples of a Swedish actor that actually came to Denmark. And I think now they have 5 different of these communities, which are cooperatives for seniors who are wealthy, who can live in this nice palm garden and feel they're a little bit more south than in the real Danish north. So they live in community this way, and they have this huge palm garden in the inside, and it has become a quite big success. I mean, people really want it, especially the seniors in Denmark. We have a recent survey showed that there was like 80,000 seniors who wanted to move into communities, and we only have like 5,000-6,000 houses available for them or build. Yeah, okay, so that was just one of them. Yeah, another one of them. I think did we jump one? Maybe? No. Yes, this is Bærbo, the one I talked about. Ross has initiated. And again, as I said before, we are all creating our niche. And when I say we, it's because I also work for a commercial developer, but we are all creating our niche. And I think one of the characteristics of is that, yes, Ross and his partner Morten, they're behind, but we do only, if you go to the next, employ in Bærbo people like, you jumped one. People like me and Marie, who are also in the photo, which is like part of this forming, yeah, one up. Yeah, again, like we have roots in the movement, and that's what I said. It adds some trust and somehow legitimacy or integrity to our project, that we do deal with people who knows what community building is about, who live there themselves. Ross with all his many years of experience, and so on play into this in Bareboot. Okay, we can continue. And we can jump that one. We have a concept, and this is basically our building blocks in Bareboot, just to show you an example of the conceptualized community models that we do. It's a 30-page document, as I said, sometimes I see some of the text in that 30-page document. Suddenly I see it copy-pasted into other developers' pages, because it's quite well, how can I say, described how to actually start up a community and what's necessary and these kind of things. And many of the more commercial actors that don't really know all this. So it's really nice that it's made publicly available from us. Okay, we can continue. Yeah, we can jump that one as well. Yes. So now I'll go to the 4 research projects, which are based on the rise in developer-oriented communities, but also in the rise of interest in communities in general. I think in Denmark, you can't really ask any Danish people who don't know somebody who lives in a community. I think many of both eco-villages and communities here in Denmark are known somehow to the general public. But nowadays, there are a lot of current interest in co-housing, eco-villages, community living. And I mentioned all the 3 here because we are really debating on the definition between them, because they more or less merge more and more. And when they do that, there's even a bigger need for a definition of both. And yes, increased interest from professional markets, the surveys that indicates large demand. And then also there's several initiatives to actually promote and facilitate a plan for the establishment of new communities. But there has been a big lack of overview of how many are we, who are we, what are the differences and these kind of things, which gave rise to one of our projects, which is about mapping community lives in Denmark. That's one. And the other one is about the developer-driven communities, and that one, I'll just show you a bit about that one now. So this one shows that around 30% of the new build co-housing units in Denmark today is established by private developers. It's quite a lot, I would say. And we also see that in the coming years, this will be increasing a lot. So what this study is about developer-driven co-housing, is to really analyze what does it mean that the top-down approach has suddenly taken such a dominant role. What does it do? I mean, these communities that are being built up, how do they function, actually? Yeah. So what does it do with the whole concept that we have? And then another thing we can say also is that we are, with the rise of these developer-driven communities, serving a much broader audience. We are no more like a small niche. We are serving a mainstream segment of the Danish population. So what it says here in conclusion is, in short, the top-down approaches need facilitation of the community, and just leave them alone like that. It has a large potential for meeting a huge demand, but it also represents a large experiment with the co-housing idea that needs continued attention. So this was like a short study, kind of, which also kind of concluded that, hey, we need to follow this trend. So they will continue, or we will continue doing that. Okay, we can go on. These are just some quotes from the developers, who says, from here, I hear from 8 out of 10 people that they want something turnkey. They want an easy to go community. And yeah, they don't want to make these choices at all. Like, how should the kitchen be? And what should be the color of the common house? Let the developer do all these things, right? It shouldn't be too controlled. And another thing, another developer says that they actually do want people who want to commit. You tire out those who do not really bother to be in community, right? But most persevere. Like you try and have a lot of meetings and say, it takes meetings to be in community. You can't do it totally without. Yeah. If you really want to create something where you have something together. Yeah, you can go on. Yeah, this is again the service, and the aim of the study has been really to gain an understanding of how the current wave of these developer-driven co-housing is contributing to the market and transition from being a niche and so on, to being an established part of the whole like accommodation and how construction and housing sector. Okay, we can go on. I have a lot of slides, so I'll go through them very fast. Because this analysis that came out of this study was exactly this, to come up with strengths and weaknesses for the developer-driven top-down and the more resident-driven bottom-up process. And yeah, one of them that they say is the strengths is better opportunities to learn from project to project. If you don't work on only one project, but you have 5, you do have the hope that number 5 is different than number 1, because you have learned from experience. And I think part of that learning is that many of these developers, they found out that they need to employ community builders or people who knows about communities and so on. It's not enough just to build their houses. And I think most of the developers today in Denmark have found out that that is a necessity to facilitate the community process. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we know much of this. As eco-villagers, we know all this. But this time we just get more evidence on it, more data. And I think as an eco-villager, that's really one of the strong sides here, that we now get more data and evidence and research in an area where we do think we know a lot actually ourselves. But now we get a research component to it that can back also our both political influence and so on and so forth. Yeah, we can continue. But this one was actually quite important. Like one of the weaknesses is that it has been a bit hard for the developers to really clarify and communicate what is the values and the intention of these developer-driven communities towards future residents. When they get those questions, they don't always know what to answer, because it is more than just the houses. Yeah, okay. Who are they? As I said before, we have the traditional construction industry today that maybe make normal nuclear house family houses. But now they have established some of them as sub-entity that take care of co-housing projects. Then we have the smaller and specialized ones, as the one I work for, and the EcoVillage.dk, who totally prioritize all their work on co-housing projects. Then we have the pension foundations who really go in strongly because they have a lot of money that they can invest in oil and weapons. So building up new sustainable communities is good. And they are good actually as actors in the field, because they are, yes, they have to generate money for their members, but they can do it in a way where they say yes and no to projects in a different way than the more commercial actors. So they're actually leading also that the buildings and the whole setup have to be ecological building and highest standards in certifications and these kind of things. They're actually leading that process. So they're quite important actually, I would say. And then the public housing associations. Yes. And what it says here in the conclusion is that they're actually very different. You cannot put them in one box. They are very diverse. Yeah, we can continue. Yeah, oh, this one was, yes, exactly. Why do they want to do it? And they want to reduce the long decision-making process. It shouldn't take 5 years to establish a community, and they want to attract ordinary Danes. And then they say until now, it has been like mainly for certain groups, long education, high income, ambition of living a radical alternative lifestyle, etc. And now they want to attract like more ordinary Danes, right? And one thing that I found really important here is that they're basing their communities on voluntary participation. It's not mandatory to go and eat or take part in working groups. It's a choice. Yeah. So that's really different with this more non-committed way of communal living, right? But they see that it's very attractive. Where some of our communities, the older forms in Denmark, where you commit to give 5 hours of work a week or something like that, it really scares people away. So these kind of communities where it's a more non-committed way of enjoying community life seems to be very attractive. Okay. Yeah, again, some quotes. The classical approach, the grassroots approach excludes some Danes who cannot stand all that. It's a bit too alternative, blah, 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 and so on. The good senior lies is that you meet and play petanque. This is where the community arises, not by holding a general assembly, some of them says, right? So going away from the community being also like an organization, as an association with shared values, but more based on interest groups. Yeah. Okay, we can continue. See, that's what happens. Emphasis on voluntary participation and so on. Some of the residents say, there's not a shared spirit here. There's small communities, but they're scattered. So people are actually looking for the shared spirit. But if nothing has been done to really create it, it doesn't just happen on itself. And I think that's one of the biggest conclusions from here, that to build that community spirit, it has to be facilitated and attended to continuously. It's not enough, as many of them do, to employ a social caretaker who will arrange social activities for people when there's no ownership among the people themselves. Yes. Yeah, we can continue. That one was before as well. This was just to show a few of the examples. Like here is like it's rental accommodation. And I can say that many of these developers, they actually want to produce a product in the market that we did not succeed in doing, because many of the eco-villages in Denmark and the co-housing projects are really expensive. So they want to do something where it's private rental, also public co-housing, but also private rental like this one, the plus houses. These plus houses, they are now 5 different places and are very popular. And that's where they have employed a practical caretaker and a social caretaker to the community, right? And then you can also order somebody to come and polish your windows or clean your house. So extra services provided, right? And for especially seniors or very busy families, this is a great asset. I mean, you don't get that in my community. Nobody come and clean your house, but they can do it here, right? Yes, we'll continue. Yes. The mapping, I won't have much time, I can see, to go into. But to understand the nature of the communities in Denmark, a mapping was needed. A mapping to show also what are the percentages of the developer-driven, self-grown, the senior ones, and so on and so forth. So this mapping was made because we need these answers, we need these data. Both the researchers, politicians, developers, also us as practitioners. When we go out and talk about promoting equality life, co-housing, and so on, community life, we need that data, right? I have a few of the results from it that we can just see. It's a longer report. We are right now translating it to English, so it will be available. And interestingly, we started out mapping from an existing database of around 300 community projects in Denmark. Then we had 4 researchers who were researching through municipalities, media, social media, everything to find all the communities, because we didn't have all of them. And we ended up in around 1,200. Then when we examined them again, it came down to 800. Then we fine-tuned our definition of what is a community. And we came down to around 620, 650, who actually lived up to our definition. And what happened here is the need for a definition. And who has the power to define? Is it the community itself who say, yes, we are a community? Or is it us looking at it and say, oh, they have houses and a common house, they eat together 3 days a week and they also have meetings, that's a community. Yeah? Or is it the developers who can say, we are building up a community? I mean, who is it who defines? And the need for a shared definition really came up. Like we fine-tuned our definition over 1 year. Yeah. Okay. But I think what was new here was that now with this database of communities in Denmark, we have managed to work together with the Danish statistics so that co-housing and communal housing, living together in community, is now like a category in the Danish statistical services, which was not before, which makes it possible to draw out data from this database, which can exactly examine how often do people move, what are the ages of people, the educational level, the family structures, and so on and so forth, which is quite new for us, that we can get all this hard data straight from Danish statistics. Yeah. So these are just a few of the data that we got out, like when were communities in Denmark actually built? And which ones were built when, and so on. Yeah, I know I have to hurry. So this is just to show a little bit, like it gives us useful information actually to see, okay, we had a wave here and a wave here. Why could that be? And so on. Yeah, we can continue a little bit fast.
What is the wave here?
Huh? Yeah, so here it says like the 3 growth periods and so on. And in recent years, there's been big growth. We knew that already, but now we can see it and so on and so forth. Yeah, we can. And yes, people who live in co-housing projects have longer education. They have more residents employed as top managers, or fewer residents with non-Western backgrounds. All this kind of data we suddenly got access to. Yeah. And continue. Yeah, this was about compared to Danish average and these kind of things, the level of education and so on and so forth. It's very useful for information for us. Okay, we can continue. Yeah, we can go on. This is just a lot of explanation. We want to look again on how does these communities live the local areas. How about sustainability? Can we measure more now that we have access to this database? So there are a lot of questions we will now like to ask, right? And how can we draw all this data out? Yeah, okay. That was the mapping, that was the developer driven. Then we have the Compass project, collective movement and pathways to sustainable societies. It's been going on for 3 years and has just been ended. I think we just need to get the main conclusion here is that residents in communities emit 30% less CO2 than average Danes. That was again data that's very useful for us. We can continue. Yeah, those are some of the numbers that came out. And this is important for us to have these data again, not only to know who we are, how many, how often do we move, but also about this CO2 consumption and that we can follow that. Okay, we can continue. Yeah, we can go down 4 slides, so I don't have time to go through them. And go down again. Conclusion, yes, that the collective choices help environmental behavior. So we designed a follow-up project on collecting action in neighborhoods, right? So that is a project that I'm now working on, and I'm just presented. Yes, we want to gain knowledge about how sustainable communities are established, and we want to document the environmental and social impact. Yeah. So what I do now the next 3.5 years is to follow 4 to 6 different communities from the offset, from their intention making, till the building, till they live together over the next 3.5 years, to follow how they actually establish themselves, how they go from intention to action. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So those are basically the 4 work packages, the 4 research questions, how to create and how to really calculate environmental behavior, how to fine-tune the CO2 calculator. So it includes not only individual households, but communities, because we are lacking that. You can go many places on the internet for your individual households, but how can we include community life in such calculators, where you have a common house and you eat together, you have shared carpooling, all these kinds of things. Yes. And then again, we also give attention to the loneliness and social coherence. You can jump this one. This is the ministerial report I told about that led to the setup of the new advisory unit in the ministry. And then this last one is just to say that when all these developers come in, it actually threatens the rise of the self-grown communities in Denmark. So what can we do as a network, as the Association of Big Villages in Denmark, to assist them is that we've now applied for funding and we got money to make what we call a start package, where we really deal with the financial, legal, municipal, social, and green aspects of how to build up a community and provide a lot of the experience that we have in eco-villages already, but that we now put in an easy, accessible way for newcomers. The interesting thing is that who is very interested in this is actually the developers too. Oh, well, okay, I think that was my words for now. Yes.
Before we do anything else, I would invite everybody to stand up, assume a horizontal position. And if you stretch up, those of you who are very tall can touch the ceiling. Fill your head and lungs with good air. I open the door so you see fresh air coming in. Breathe out and feel very happy. Move your shoulders around and pretend you're a cat just waking up and like you see the cats do this with their back legs. They're such a just move a little bit because our bodies were built to move rather than sit. The sitting is better. Okay, I hope you feel better. I feel great. I mean, your bodies feel that they are energized a little bit before we go into the next session. I should be using this. Correct, yes, I try and behave myself on these things. I think this also is going to be the roving microphone. Is that correct? Okay. Then I wonder if I'm going to move over, then I could be the rover. If I'm going to grab that chair and oh, can I just have my notebook a minute because my memory is terrible, but I have my pad here. So first of all, I just wanted to say a couple of things about this because it seems to me this is going to be a discussion, which I hope it will be. And there were a couple of things that really resonated with me. About being an edge worker. I'm a permaculture teacher, and edge is one of those richest places where things happen. And that you mentioned being guided by questions. And I hope that these two presentations raised questions, because actually questions are so much more important than answers. Anybody can give an answer, but the question needs to be posed first. And the fact that you were looking for 6 principles of community really resonated with me. I've actually used a bit of Deborah's research here, and we used 12 principles, and I'm sure that could be an entry into a little discussion there. I've been thinking a lot about this during the first plenary, about this top down and bottom up. And that was very much what you were talking about. And I would like if we could expand that discussion into the horizontal. Like how do all these different kind of projects, top down, bottom up, how do we on the flat playing field connect together? There's the big trap out there. There are 2 big traps out there. One is the sharks cruising in the waters around our islands, looking for ways to make money. And the other thing, there's a big trap that we get the kind of feeling that, well, we're doing real eco-villages. You guys aren't doing real eco-villages. And that's a very destructive force. So maybe we can bring that up into our discussion. So I would like to open it, and I've got to run around with this thing. That's why I put ourselves in a circle, you see that? So open for questions. And let's just go around the room.
Oh, okay. I guess my question's mostly for Camilla, but it does maybe tap into this idea of exploring horizontal. And that is, do the developers who are entering the field understand that some of the turnkey scales that are introducing need to go to the rebuilding a civil society? In other words, emphasis on the residents' skills and knowledge, learning to disagree better and being basically better equipped to work collectively and together. So that yes, maybe there is an attraction for a turnkey, but the keys are also the people in the community. So entering the market, not just developers for eco buildings, but also developers for conflict resolution, mutual aid. I mean, through the pandemic, I know we observed many mutual aid groups that popped up that actually generated skills that hadn't existed before. So is there a way to actually maybe cultivate that, the human group work side of this, as well as the developer group work, and that could be occupying a space horizontally between the top down and bottom up, and more about actually human growth, human development. And that kind of touches on both, because I think the participatory action research in some ways is tapping into those unconscious but maybe underdeveloped skills.
These guys are keyed in on this. You want to respond to that?
Yeah, I can say that the need for people skills has been totally overseen and ignored by many of the developers, which of course also leads to different conflicts, because you can build up frameworks, you can employ people to arrange both Zumba and yoga for every taste, but I mean, if you don't provide the people living there with access to what is actually needed to form a community and how to facilitate them in, learning how to live together and talk about these things and have meetings. It's like there's some interesting thing built up here that in eco-villages and existing communities we meet all the time, and in the new ones they never meet. And it's not like that. I mean, meetings as such, right? Where we sit in a circle and discuss things. So there's this, they portray us, the existing eco-villages, in one way and say, ooh, we really don't want to do it that way, right? So there is already built that, parallel structure here in right and wrong. Like we say in the eco-village movement and the community association that we do things in the right way, and we look at them and point fingers a little bit and say, how can you even establish a real community in that wrong way that you're doing it? And that's not so healthy, I think. But I think many of these new developer-driven communities, they do not really align themselves to the eco-village movement much, but to the community association. Now have a lot of these new ones as members, because they have realized that they need it. They need some people who have this experience. They need to tap in the many years of experience that are there in how to solve conflicts, how to distribute work, how to accept that some people do a lot and some don't do anything. And these kind of things. I mean, these people things that they don't know of themselves. So they do tap into that now because they can see it's needed. And the residents also want it. Many of them actually create like an enemy picture of the developer that provided their community. And then they come to us and say, we need help here to fight against our developer in legal stuff and so on and so forth, and to get assistance in how to actually get our community to work. And of course we take them in. Even it is a quite unhealthy situation that many of the residents have this enemy picture of that developer that gave them birth.
There's a good reason why like traditional developers do not have in mind the importance of the quality of social field, because from this like functional mindset, it's not really possible to see this like dimension of our interbeing. And that's also like a paradigm shift within academia to like fight for methods and also for a language that is able to at least like see the subject or see the research object and make it create a subject out of it. So yeah, it's we need a really fundamental mind shift, and that's like for me obvious through all the layers of society. And I have a huge understanding that like traditional investing does not or is not even able to see this dimension. So I think we are also like called in to translate between these worlds. Yeah, find language that systematizes this like soft skills into actionable insights. Well,
Okay. Being here now, I've forgotten there now. So we do have a disembodied voice.
Maybe I
use the mic to use your question.
Thank you, Thank you. Yes, we have a question from Joe for Camilla. When counting the 600 or so communities in the study, did that include eco-villages or only co-housing? And did you distinguish between the two?
It included eco-villages. Because many eco-villages are also communities where many communities don't see themselves as eco-villages. So they are included, but they have their own category. So it has been made like senior cooperatives, eco-villages, I mean, age diverse communities. And so it has been divided into 4 different fractions.
I think I can just go on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my question also relates to Camilla, to this amount of 600 to 800 somehow communal living projects. No? And I heard that you said you were discussing for about a year the definition. And I remember when the Gen Network started, we also discussed it for years and years. What is an eco-village? What is an intentional community? But I wonder with what maybe you already got a frame, right? The minimum number or the ownership issue or the decision-making process. What is the field you are discussing this? Or maybe you even came up with a provisional definition, no? Because I'm really interested how this discussion develops.
I can say shortly that the definition, as it was fine-tuned along the way, it became more and more sharp. Like it was not enough to have 3 generations living in a house together. Yeah. It was, we came up with a number of 12 people, participatory decision-making, having shared facilities and these kind of things. And therefore a lot of them fell out, actually. So those that are left are those that live up to that criteria. Then the working group and the ministerial working group started, and they also came up with a definition. And then we're like, okay, how do we unite these definitions? We also have a definition in Gen, and I mean, so now the task of the new advisory unit is to actually take all these definitions, compare them, look at them, try to somehow facilitate in the field of Denmark how we can come up with a definition that we all kind of can support. Yeah.
Thank you. We have one other person from the other side, as they say.
You got it. Yes, we have a question from Jenny on Zoom for Camilla. Camilla mentioned that self-developed co-housing can be quite uniform sometimes and can lack diversity, and that developers might have a wider appeal. Is this then perhaps a good outcome that co-housing could become more diverse, or is it something you think self-developed co-housing could just do better themselves?
Interesting. But I do think like it comes with the word intentional, right? I mean, when we meet together around an intention, that we all support that intention, and that's what keeps us together, kind of. Where if you meet around a cluster of houses and not an intention as such, then of course you attract a more diverse group. And then later on, they find out that it would be nice that we kind of found out what we have together in common that can keep being the glue of something that actually makes us leave our little house and go to our common house and eat dinner together or want to work together, something like that. And I think that's what this study shows, that when people didn't meet around any intention except from I want to live together with other people, it's a very first step intention. So how can you fine-tune that intention as a community, especially in a community where some people want to live out of intentions and others really don't care. And that's what happens right now. So we do actually have some people from these developer-led communities who come to us, and now I have my commercial developer employee hat on, and say we would rather like to live in a community where there's a focus on both how to live in community and why. Because that's what we do in Bærbo, in our little niche. We do deal with intentions. They make up their profile, their intention, their visions, and so on. We really talk about why we want to live together and how, and that is what is absent in the other ones. So we have like actually right now a rise of people who move into the developer driven, who don't have an intention and want, I mean, they're looking for our places. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of hands here. We have one more from the floor here. And then we're going.
Hi, Camilla. I remember that during your presentation this morning, you talked about the initial focus of Alundavira, which was permaculture and spirituality. And I would like to ask if you could share with us what Alundavira's conception of spirituality was or is about, and why did it fade over time? And I also remember hearing from Ross Jackson that the initial focus of John was the broad initial focuses of John was also on spirituality, ecology plus spirituality. I would like to ask if you could tell us about how these principles have evolved over time, and how do we actually relate to communities that don't have that common spiritual vision, whatever that is, and how can we promote a kind of, re-enchantment of the world without being like preachy or some would say cultish or whatever, without preaching, while respecting diversity of views and so on.
I can share an experience that some of the first people I met when we started Nielsen-Englyst was actually Ross and Hildur, who had a ceremony in the garden of the farm, and Hildur put up this big orange flag. That orange flag became the symbol of the existing village resistance towards us and their way to judge us as being a sect. It formed a lot of newspaper articles that we were some spiritual sect, abusing children, whatever. I mean, a lot of weird things came up due to our like very physical presence of some of our practices in a way. So I think we have taken it a little bit more internal, that it's not actually something that we talk about or spread too much. But people do see that we have like physical sweat lodges and cacao ceremonies, and we have talking sticks and angel cards and bells, and we bless the food and these kind of things, like practices. And I mean, it's includes some and excludes others. Like when people come to our common meetings, for instance, and say, oh, we are interested in moving to Nielsen-Englyst, and they see that we close our eyes and hold our hands and we sit in a circle, already that's enough to scare people away. And they say we are very spiritual. So spiritual, well, it's just good to, I mean, it has a lot of practical ways to sit in a circle and have a talking stick to govern the speech and so on. But some people run away from the spiritual vibe, that is it. And that's fine. Then go somewhere else where that vibe is not there, and so on. And then we attract the people who like that kind of thing. And I think that's what they also say in this study, that yes, our current communities, they are more intentional, know what they have together and so on. And so we do also exclude people who are not really into those things, where the new ones are more open for like everybody. That happens a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now going outdoors for a second.
Outdoors.
Yes, we have another question from the Zoom. This one is for Gerriet. This person would like to know, could you say more about how you use participatory action research to generate research goals and questions with specific communities?
Yes, I can, but honestly, that was not the focus on the project that I just presented. So there's participatory action bicycle research tour that I presented right now was more like a fast prototyping thing where I came up with 2 friends and the idea, and we sent the invitation out on our social media network, and people applied for it. We got in contact with communities and we just did it. That was more like, we have an idea and whoever wants is welcome to be in. And who feels not attracted, well, good enough for now. But I'm also working on more complex projects. For example, this Reallabor Guter Laune, where we got quite a huge funding from the Federal Ministry of Research and Education, where we make one intentional community in Germany and make them a living lab to research together with the Global Eco-Village Network Germany, the Transition Town Network, the Community Supported Agriculture Network, the network of open workshops and community gardens, so all these like bigger players in the German-speaking context, typical challenges for community-led initiatives. And this whole project, arcing several years, is like it is another example that shows how important it is to include the practitioners within the agenda setting. And there we have like monthly evaluation calls, always with one of the practitioner networks, where we have also a project like a ongoing project evaluation, and where we are always up for like refining our interactions and also our research goals, and have also within all our structures the idea of power sharing. That means like also financing jobs within these networks. That means like having all the important decision makings at least with one representative from the scientific community and one from the practitioners. And there are many more tools to make sure that transformative research is really or really centers practitioners, and make sure that it not that it not became a merely academic project. I hope that speaks to the question.
Maybe I can add to it also that the participatory action research that we're doing here is, for instance, that I work with one group. There are 35 people moving into a community in 1 year's time. So we are taking them around for tours. So they have been now to, I think, 12 different communities, but on a scale, some small, some big, some self-grown, some developer-led, some spiritual, some very practical, and so on. And my role is to see, okay, what do they see? What are their comments? What do they like? What is really scaring them away? So like when they're exposed to such a diversity of communities, what do they take to build their own? And how much does it actually mean to them that they have seen 12 others till now? I mean, every third month we take them out on these tours in the weekend. And afterwards, they know that I study them, kind of. So I do have these interviews with them where I really go deep and ask them, what do you see here? What quality do you see in this community that you would like to take to your own community that you are building? So that's one. The other thing is that they are taking part in trainings on how to mobilize and organize for green transition. And it's like from Friday till Sunday. And we have 3 people from each of the communities who participate, and all kind of other things, other people. And I go with them too. And I want to trace, like, what do they learn from being in such trainings? And afterwards, how will they apply it in their community building process? So I follow these kind of things with them throughout these 3.5 years. And I think that's a really interesting journey to be so close to them and see how can we expose them to all kind of different things for them to somehow form their own path in their community.
Right, thank you. We have a luxury problem. The session is much too good, and time is running away from us. So really, we have time for one more comment and maybe a closing comment.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I have a practical question for Gerriet, and it has to do with in the States, we have to go through institutional review boards in order to do human subjects research, and it can be very confining in terms of what you're able to do in following sort of creative processes like you were describing. And it can take a long time to get your project approved, and then you have to specify all your questions in advance, and you have to use these long consent forms, and the community has to agree, but the individuals you talk to have to agree. And if you take photos, you have to do photo releases, and it just really constrains you. And I'm just wondering if you have any advice or what sort of process you have to go through in Germany, and how you've been able to maybe circumvent it to be more creative in the methods you use.
You just named it. Go for creativity. Go for creativity. So to be honest, within Germany, you should go through quite similar processes, and that fucking scared us, because it seemed like we are not able to really like have a practical project within the first 2 years phase of this bigger funding project. And then we just took a step back and like constructed a completely different narrative. Said, all right, but actually it's not us doing some research. Actually, it's practitioners doing some research, and we are just like observing them and supporting them. And that was good enough for the federal ministry to say, all right, if you are not conducting the research, then you don't need to get all the papers together. And that like reduced like, yeah, paperwork by 80%. But yeah, I don't believe in copy-paste solutions. That will probably be different in the States.
Yeah.
But I think where you can try is, yeah, taking a step back and thinking about like different narratives of who is researching whom and what are the relations and why. Yeah, because not only why should which actors get in the proper way, but also like what are the power structures that reestablish or that you reinforce if you continue to carry out research in the traditional way. I hope that speaks to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great. It's quite more technology lets you down, but you profit by it, because I feel my watch wasn't completely correct.
Which gives us another 3 minutes. So I have too many people to be able to, have 4 questions in 3 minutes. That's not fair. So I would like to, Dan, if you could ask the last question.
Yeah, I'll make it a question that can be a future research question for you, Camilla. ICSA founder Don Pitzer talked about the way communities develop over time, and often they develop away from the intensity of commitment. Eco-villages and co-housing start halfway down that path, in the sense that they typically don't share on income or daily work. And the developer founded communities that you're talking about start even further down that developmental path in that they don't share an intention. So I guess my question is, will the developmental processes for these communities be similar to the process we see in communities like the kibbutzim, or totally different because of that different starting point?
In short, I would say they would be very different, but I think we really need to give attention to them. And I think that's therefore I really welcome that there is this research interest, and there are funders who would like to follow this trend. And I think that would be also my closing remark here, that I think in the eco-village movement, we always so proudly say we want to embrace diversity. But what is the limit of our embracement of this diversity when it confronts our fundamental values as the eco-village movement? But still, I mean, when we have actors on the scene who really differs from ourselves, I think still we should welcome them. We should offer our assistance so that in the end they do create more healthy, sustainable communities. And I think that is our task. So sometimes we just have to, I wouldn't say swallow our pride, but still stay close to where we come from, but offer it in a form that they can actually take it. Because in the end, I think all of us want that these developers do create communities that are good for people and do that.
Okay, I think we'll close the session now. This is a great example, by the way, of Einstein's theory of relativity. In that you can see how fast time goes when you are in a discussion in ICSA conference compared to when waiting for a bus in the rain in the dark. So I really want to thank our two panelists, our two presenters. I really want to thank all of you for a very good discussion. I want to thank the people outside of our circle who joined us on Zoom, and of course the technical people who made this all possible. And we have a built-in tool for this conference for following the discussion afterwards. On the Zoom, it's called breakout groups and chat boxes. And here physically in the Odonicon, there's called tables for dining around upstairs. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for making us feel comfortable.
Yes.
That was your